Bienvenido. Welcome to every single person who's joining us right now for Voto Latino's event this evening. We're bringing together Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and young, fierce trailblazers who are leading the fight to cancel student debt. I'm Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino, and this is fun because I love SNL, coming to you live from my home in Washington, D.C. I'm thrilled to be joined not just by one of Capitol Hill's most fiercest champions for the administrative action to cancel student debt, but by 5 extraordinary young women who are right now leading the charge in their own communities and online to build momentum for this critical move. We understand that sometimes the best way to make sure that our leaders pay attention to us is by shaking their cage and telling them that this is an issue that we care about. And the young women that you're about to hear from are doing just that. Our country is facing a historic public health and economic crisis caused by the pandemic. I hope you're all well. But long before the pandemic, the United States also faced a profoundly destructive student debt crisis, with more than 40 million Americans crushed by more than 1.6 trillion in federal student loans. You heard that right. I was one of those people. We know that this crisis weighs particularly heavily on our communities. Latino students are disproportionately likely to need to take out loans in order to go to college, especially those first-geners. I was a first-gener. And nearly 1/3 of Latinos in their 20s and 30s are still carrying student debt. But those numbers don't tell the whole story, because Latino community and Latinas in particular face pay discrimination on the job. It takes more years for the average Latino student to pay off their student debt than the average white student. As they get older, Latinos are more likely to be carrying a heavier share of the original debt, and they're more likely to fall behind on payments. That's particularly dangerous when it means that home ownership, which has for generations been a powerful tool for building generational wealth, is increasingly out of reach because of the strapping student debt. Rising housing prices make it hard enough for young Latinos to buy a home of their own. For many, student debt makes it impossible. Ultimately, though, student loan debt increases not just for financial well-being, but also provides access to healthcare and family stability writ large. While student debt is often discussed as an issue that impacts young people, the truth is that it affects us at every stage of our life. That's why Voto Latino is so deeply engaged in this issue. We profoundly believe here at Voto Latino that the ability of our community to participate full and equally in the life of our country means to make sure that we are all working from the same vantage point. It's also why I'm so pleased to be joined by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, not just on this call, but in the movement and in this moment. He's been pushing for bold action, including urging President Biden to use existing legal authority under the Higher Education Act to cancel up to $50,000 in student debt for federal student loan borrowers. And while we're here to talk specifically about student debt relief, I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank him for his leadership in defending the right to vote and removing barriers from the ballot box for Latino voters, and for every American out there who wants to cast a ballot fair and freely and safely. Senator Schumer, thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you for your work on this issue.
Well, thank you so much, Maria Teresa. And I really want to thank Voto Latino for the great work that you have done in support of the Latino community and in putting this event together. First, I may have to go vote. I'm right off the Senate floor in the middle of the discussion, but I'll only be away for 3 minutes. So please pardon me. We'll see when the vote ends and the next one starts. But I am passionate about this issue. College should be a ladder up for our young people. And instead, because of student debt, it's often an anchor that weighs them down and prevents people from planning their careers, from doing the jobs they want to do, from buying a home, buying a car, going on a vacation. Every month when you have to pay those extra dollars and you say, how am I going to pay it? And what else do I have to deprive myself of? That is wrong for America, and particularly wrong for the future of America. I'm so grateful to the trailblazing young women who are joining us tonight to share their stories. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for all you have done. As I said, and it's so important also, we must add, not only to women, but to women of color and all people of color who are more weighed down by student debt than anybody else. Many because, like you, Maria Teresa, they are first-time college students that got taken advantage of by their colleges all too often. And that is so sad. So we know what a burden this can be to young women trying to achieve their dreams, whether it's rising the corporate ladder, starting a business, buying a home, starting a family. And even before the pandemic, 43 million Americans owed $1.6 trillion in student debt. That is more than car loans. That is more than just about anything else. It has so galloped up on us. When I went to college, my father was an exterminator. He didn't have much money, but I worked my way through college and I was able to get out of college debt free because tuition was very low. Now it's so high and college is so important to people, but people can't afford it, so they undertake debt. Let me just give you a couple of statistics. Within 6 years of starting school, 1 in 5 Latino borrowers have defaulted on a student loan. They're twice as likely to default as white borrowers because, as you said, they're taken more advantage of by the colleges, and then because of discrimination, can't get the kind of job that would enable them to pay the loan back. And for Black borrowers, by the way, it's not much different. While the median white borrower will pay roughly 6% of their debt 20 years after college, the median Black borrower will owe 95%. Here's the good news. You've heard all about the travails and how so many of our Republicans block things like voting rights. This one, we don't have to go through Congress. We don't have to go through the Senate. The president, President Biden, can sign, with the flick of a pen, can sign a statement relieving this country of student debt. And that's why Congresswoman Presley and Senator Warren and I are asking the president to sign a statement and put into law a statement that says $50,000 of debt is automatically forgiven for everyone. 3/4 of all Black and Latino borrowers would have no debt after that happens, and everyone else would have their debt greatly reduced. The president can do this. Right now, there is a pause on paying back student debt, but it's expected to expire on May 1st, which is less than 50 days away. So we are pushing him not only to cancel the student debt, but in the meantime, keep the pause going so people don't have to pay back. The bottom line is that borrowers should not be asked to pay back their loans until the White House outlines new plans to cancel student debt. So it's a 1-2 punch we have. So thank you. I look forward to listening to these beautiful young women who want to have a great future, but are weighed down by student debt. And I promise every viewer tonight, I am going to fight and fight and fight until this happens. My nickname in New York, given to me by Nydia Velasquez, is El Luchador. When it comes to student debt, I sure am El Luchador.
Muchísimas gracias, Senator Schumer, for that. And something that I often say, Senator, is that the promissory note does not know gender, but we know that Latinas make 53 cents on the dollar for their white male counterpart. And we know that African-American women make close to 75 cents on the dollar and white women 89 cents. So even out of college, we are already behind the black ball because unfortunately, we are not competing in an even playing field. So we will work so closely with you, Senator, to make sure that we are there with President Biden the day he decides to sign this $50,000 relief. So thank you so much. And with that, I'd love to be able to dive in and have a conversation with some of these amazing women so that you, our audience, can hear a little bit about what they're doing to make transformative change, not just for today, but for a generation. So first, I'd like to welcome Kim Guerra, who received the Agent of Change Award from Univision's Premios Juventud, and who happens to be in Mexico right now, and has been recognized for her work in various publications, from Oprah Magazine to People Magazine to Remezcla, Me Too, and the list goes on. She continues to be a voice and platform to advocate for the immigrant community and the LGBTQ plus BIPOC survivors, mujeres, and oppressed communities. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. We also have Nubia Batista. Hola. Today, we also have Nubia Batista, the founder of Latinas Uprising, an online community for the modern Latina lawyer. I like to hear that. Latinas Uprising provides practical advice for Latinas to get them through law school and ready to begin a thriving legal career. Marivette Navarrete, the founder and CEO of Mujerista, a digital media publication, also joins us. The network is dedicated to empowering and celebrating the next generation of Latinas making an impact in our culture. I'm here for that. Olivia Juliana, an activist and political media strategist from Houston, Texas, Houston in the house, who makes political content across platforms with a combined following of, get this, 220,000 people. She currently works for a political strategy coordinator for GenZ for Change, a coalition of over 500 media creators with a combined audience of over 500 million people. That's power. Gina DiVittorio, who is Brooklyn-based writer, originally from Southern Colorado, El Paso, Colorado, I learned today, with a background in social welfare and low-income housing. She is currently a writer and producer for the widely popular political satire series, The Pocket Report, and works as a freelance content creator for legislative and public health campaigns. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I want to dive right in because we have so much to discuss. So I'm going to start off with a round robin and ask each of you one question. And that is, what motivates you to get into this fight? And Gina, I will go ahead and start off with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for putting this whole event on. As you stated in my bio, my background was in affordable housing, and I worked for an organization in Newark, New Jersey that focused on home ownership for the purpose of intergenerational wealth. And when we, like you said, when we talk about the student loan debt crisis, we often conceptualize it as young people earlier in their career trying to pay off student loans. But some of the largest student loan debt in the country is carried by specifically 35-year-olds. And what that results in is not only are you creating a barrier towards intergenerational wealth in an outright way, but we see that happen in home ownership and even being able to rent because it also impacts your credit. As Senator Schumer said, we're looking for a unilateral approach. And having worked in political strategy, I think that it's more important now than ever because we're starting to see legislation come out against student loan debt. And I think that is, a double strategy, both to attack Biden, but also because student loan debt disproportionately affects a very specific group of people, and that is young people, people of color, and women.
I think that you mentioned so many things because oftentimes what we don't realize is exactly that, is that it impedes the next step of adulthood, so to speak, right? And we're strapped with it. I will share with you, and Senator Schumer may recall, but in the late 90s, there was legislation that basically provided for people to declare bankruptcy on all their debt, except student loans. And so, Gina, I have to tell you, that was one of the things to me that was personally upsetting, because you can make a wrong bet on a business, but if you were investing and betting on yourself and got into financial trouble, you couldn't eradicate that. And it just seemed that it was the deck was stacked against young people because we didn't have representation. And the fact that you and and the folks on this call are in the fight and making the noise to give people the courage to do the right thing makes all the difference as a former Hill staffer.
And Maria Teresa, we're trying to undo that equity as well, that you should be able to declare bankruptcy for student debt like you can declare bankruptcy for everything else. It's outrageous to single students out. That was the power of the banks, and we're fighting them, and hopefully we can succeed.
And Senator Schumer, what is that legislation?
Well, that is legislation, so it's taking a longer path than the cancellation of student debt, but it's gaining good support.
We'll be right there with you then on that one as well. Kim, I would love to hear from you. What got you into this fight?
Hola, muchas gracias. Ahora sí, I'm a first generation student, and there was nobody to tell me what to do, how much loans I would incur. So I am here because we need this access. We need resources for our communities, especially for the first generation, because this is also a manifestation, like Gina was saying, of that intergenerational wealth. Most of us don't start with any wealth or resources. And when we graduate, we're actually with huge debt, and we don't have the access and resources to maybe those high paying jobs that our peers may have as well. And also, se me fue el tren.
Se le fue el tren. It's like, I lost my train of thought. That's perfect. I haven't heard that expression in such a long time.
No, what I wanted to say is that we need these access, we need this resource, and also a lot of the undocumented community needs access to resources and finances for education in order to move forward.
And we do believe in the Latino community, as in so many communities, that our parents sacrificed so much of their future for us. And I don't know how it was with you all, but my mother was always telling me, you're going to go to college. And that was the only direction I got. So what you're sharing, Kim, is so personal to me, because it was a matter of trying to navigate a system that was not designed to be navigated by first-gen students necessarily. And I think it is so important to make sure that we give people the tools to navigate it. So Nubia, I would love to hear from you, from your perspective, why this fight and why now?
Yes, of course. Thank you again for having me. And
Maria
hearing-
Teresa, I have to go vote. Please continue your presentations. I'll be back shortly.
Okay, thank you. Go. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you. I agree so much with Kim and Gina's points, both it's personal and it's also community, and that's why we're in this fight. So I'm an attorney. I have over $200,000 in student debt because I went to 2 private universities, and folks might say, well, you know, you should make better choices. There's public schools, there's this, but I was making the best choices for me back then. I was young. I was an immigrant kid myself, navigating very complex system and trying to figure it out. And I saw education as a tool to better my station in life. And it worked for me, but it is not working for everybody. And that's the bigger issue. And I see community when I talk to young professionals, lots of Latinas who are interested in law school. The sticker shock of law school is what keeps them out. And I think about all of this future generation would-be leaders who are not able to access higher ed simply because of the cost. And that impacts all of us. It harms us because we don't have these leaders then working for us in these positions of power. And so I think about that and say, how can I not get into this fight? And I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, thank you for your voice. And I think that the fact that you are an attorney that knows how to navigate and is still trying to pay it forward for other folks also speaks to the difficulty of these barriers. And so, Olivia, I'd love to hear from you. And do you go by Olivia Juliana or Olivia?
Olivia's fine.
No, but what do you prefer?
Olivia,
we're in good spaces.
Olivia.
Julia. I'm going to start calling you Olivia Juliana. There we go.
For me, a big motivating factor of this is because I am a freshman in college, and I've been very blessed to not have to take out student loan debt yet. And I say yet because the reality is for a lot of people in this country is that it's a given that you're going to have to take out student loans. But for me, a big part of this is I started working in politics as a junior in high school, and I joined GenZ for Change, and we worked with President Biden to get him elected. We worked with different organizations to increase youth vote turnout in 2020. And so now that we've gotten, President Biden in office and we've gotten a blue Congress, it's time to hold them accountable and to call on them to fulfill the campaign promises they made. Because President Biden made a lot of promises in his campaign about erasing student loan debt. So it's not just about erasing it for the generations that have already had to indebt themselves, but it's about paving the way to make sure that we are holding our politicians, especially our president, accountable for the promises that they make to the people, especially the promises that they make to people of color in this country, because we've gotten the short end of the stick for far, far too long, and it's time that we start paving the way to a better future, especially when it comes to education.
And Olivia, this is one of the, Olivia Juliana, this is one of the things that people do not realize is that in 2020, young people came out and voted in record number. We had not seen so much participation in this generation, and it gives us promise, but it also is what you are saying. Politicians need to deliver in order to ensure that these same young people that, not just in the White House, but the White House, the Senate, and Congress, that the Senate and the Congress and the White House do their part to deliver on what we voted for. And so we really need to highlight that. And when Senator Schumer comes back, I'd love to get his response of what he thinks should be the next steps from the community. What is that movement building that needs to happen? But with that, I would love to ask, Marivette, why are you in this fight?
Thank you, Maria, Teresa, Kumar, and Voto Latino. I am motivated by this.
Inside joke, guys.
I am motivated by this fight, as I know firsthand also how student loans affect not just communities of color, but also all students from moving forward onto the path of their dreams or in supporting themselves and their families. The college debt that students are facing today is significantly different from those faced 10, 20, 30 plus years ago. And communities of color are more likely to take out student debt. And in the process, we are facing more challenges in paying it back, or as a lot of us have discussed tonight, creating intergenerational wealth and a sustainable future for ourselves and our communities. Tuition is outpacing a student's ability to pay, and students take out loans to finance their degrees. It's rising. And with that idea, we graduate thinking that we're going to land a secure job or secure future right after that's going to help us pay off our debt. But it's clearly not the case for so many of us. And I think it's important that future generations have a clearer path ahead of them to be the leaders that they're born to be or that they're looking to be.
So Marivette, so let's continue this thread, because one of the questions I had for you all is this idea of what it means for intergenerational wealth, number one, but also for young people today who have not entered college. What hindrance does student debt do to them? Walk me through that.
Well, for me, for example, I graduated in the fall of 2010 with over $30,000 in student loan debt, which in comparison to so many of my peers and friends and families, it's relatively low. But nonetheless, I agreed to these new loans, and I told myself that it was going to work out when I graduated and I would secure a job or be on this career path that will help me pay off my debt. And unfortunately, I entered the workforce amid a recession, and I quickly realized that the job of my dreams or an internship opportunity that one would normally take after college to get on this career path was going to have to wait because jobs were so scarce, and I would just need to take a job that would help me pay off my student debt. And so I started my career as a law clerk in a local law firm where I was paid $10 an hour, even with a college degree. And it's taken me over 10 years to pay off this debt. And although I'm happy to say that I'm nearly completed with paying it off, I had to make a lot of sacrifices. And I know so many of us have had that same journey. Student debt pushes down your credit score, and because those monthly payments are so high, and many of us have had to pause or delay our hopes of having a family or for home ownership because of how high our student debt or monthly rates are. And for me, I have also decided against going to graduate school because I'm afraid to take on additional student debt burdens. And, that's something that I dream of doing, but it seems nearly impossible because of tuition costs and the idea of jumping into another student loan situation scares me.
So I see a lot of nodding heads on this. I think that what you're saying is twofold. One is that it's the immediate student debt that will may frighten someone from even going to college, but then also from achieving a higher degree, which is not supposed to be the purpose. When people take the risk of going to school is to invest in themselves. And the byproduct of it is a stronger society, and an analytical society. And trust me, right now, we need a lot of we need a more analytical society right now with what we're seeing. So Gina, I want to ask you, based on what you heard from Marivette, is what would student relief mean to you right now?
Thank you. So two-pronged answer to student loan relief on the receiving end of it, both me and just the generation that I exist in. I think that it would mean avoiding a housing crisis that I think the US is headed towards. B, both investing in yourself, investing in your family, and investing in your community. Like we were saying, it's a deterrent in that we aren't seeing as many low-income people go into these kind of gate-kept jobs that are really important. So law school, doctors, even politics, because politics is just riddled with unpaid internships and things like that. In an execution sense, I think what student loan debt looks like for me is both Biden taking the unilateral action, and then what I think is really important is including where we've only discussed federal student loans, but I really want to stress the importance of private student loans being included not only are private student loans more predatory, they've got higher interest rates, but they also disproportionately affect people who didn't or weren't able to access federal student loans, which are DACA recipients and undocumented people. So I think, like, if we're going to do this, I think we should do this for all of us and not just people with federal loans.
Thank you. And I see a lot of snaps and a lot of head nodding. Thank you so much for joining us again, Senator Schumer. We're having a lively discussion.
Yes.
Where
And I apologize, I had to go vote, and there'll be another vote coming up, but I know people are asking what they can do to help, and there is something you can really do to help. If everyone listening, all we want is we're trying to get 15 million emails, letters, calls to the White House to ask President Biden to use his pen and cancel student loans. And if you can do that, it will help. So I would ask everyone on this, listening on this call, on this Zoom, to please do it. Get 5 people, get your family, get your friends to do it as well. And it's a simple sentence. It doesn't need a long letter. President Biden, please cancel student debt. And you can email him, you can call the White House, you can write him, however you feel comfortable communicating, but communicate that to him and it'll make a huge difference. And that, because if he hears from so many people, and particularly so many young people and so many young women, people of color who are his base, it'll help. I think he wants to do it. We just need to push him.
And I'm glad that you underscored the power of mobilization and contacting our members of Congress and our House and our president, because sometimes what people don't realize, I was a former staffer. I used to staff Congressman Vic Fazio back in the day, Senator Schumer. And what I learned being on the inside was that one phone call, that letter, that represented hundreds, if not thousands of people that didn't have the time to do the exact same effort. So the politicians really take that seriously. So this is something perhaps that Voto Latino will go back and figure out how we can be more helpful and making it more seamless so that everybody on this call, on the Zoom, can talk to our audience about the importance of that mobilization.
Maria, yeah, that's a great idea. Because you see, you don't expect the president to read every email he gets, but every day his staff comes in and says, you got 9,000 letters and calls and emails and tweets on this issue, 7,000 were for, 2,000 against. So the politicians get the idea. And if every day he's getting 10, 20, 30,000 calls, emails, tweets, letters, he will know it and he will say, whoa, this is some movement.
I like the way you're very deft and a very great politician. You gave us homework tonight as we talk about student debt, Senator Schumer. I want to bring in Olivia, because one of the things that you were sharing was how you are in this fight because you are mobilizing young people. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm the political marketing coordinator for GenZ for Change. We are primarily based on TikTok, and we have over 1.4 million followers that are primarily comprised of Generation Z. And so it's really important when we have these conversations about erasing student debt that we're talking about the young people who are going into college. You know, I actually want to take a moment to say thank you to Senator Schumer, because I wouldn't have been able to go to my first year of college without funding from the American Rescue Plan or grants from the federal government. And so when we're talking about mobilizing young people, we have to understand that even though some of us are in the place where we're not taking out debt right now, we're going to get to that point. You know, I'm probably going to have to take out student loans next year for my sophomore year of college, because I decided to go the Dr. Jill Biden route and go to community college first because I wanted to save money and not go into debt. And so when we're talking about mobilizing young people, a lot of it is, I don't want that to be me. And we hear stories from people who are millennials or our parents who went to college and are in debt to this day. You know, I'm a different situation. I'm the first person in my family who will graduate from college. But it's a lot of, if you do this, you're going to end up in this situation. And young people, we do not want to be in that boat. And we want to know, what's Congress going to do to keep us from getting in that situation? Because when we talk about erasing debt, it's really easy to think of it in this one fell swoop and you're done. But if we just erase student debt, We're remedying a symptom instead of eradicating the illness. And we need to make sweeping reforms to the public education system and to the college education system so that we're not just passing the burden that generations before us have had to feel onto the next generation. And so young people are very mobilized in that aspect because we see how it affected those before us, and we do not want it to happen again.
Yeah, and one thing that we just did in the omnibus bill, we increased the Pell Grant, which reduces the amount of debt you need because it helps pay for college. And we're trying to get the Pell Grant to get higher and higher and deals with some of the problems you've just talked about. You're 100% right. Student debt is very important for people who have it, but we got to reduce the cost of college, make it easier to pay for college. One of the things President Biden proposed in his BBB plan, which we're working on, is that community colleges be free.
And Senator, with that, do you think that that is still on the table?
Well, you know, the BBB plan, of course, we did not get the 50 votes we needed, but we're still working at it, and there's still lots of conversations going on.
Good. Well, we hope to see it. I have to say, thank you for increasing the Pell Grant. I was a Pell Grant recipient. And as a first gen, I know that it made all the difference, and it allowed me to convince my father that we were going to be okay if I went to college, to four-year college.
So Maria, I have another vote again, but let me just say to all of you, you are testaments to strength and courage. You help inspire people. I know it's not easy to speak out to an audience so large, even though it's a Zoom audience, you know, you're not seeing them in person. That's even scarier when you first start speaking. But you did.
These are pros, though. These women are pros.
They are. That's what I was going to say. You did a wonderful job. You're helping the cause. Please keep reminding everybody, call, write, email the president so we can get this done and breathe a sigh of relief that that anchor is removed from so many people's ankles.
I think that is so eloquently said. Thank you so much for your time, Senator Schumer. Thank you for the fight. Thanks for being here.
And I want to again thank you, Maria, for the great job you do. I want to thank Voto Latino, and I really want to thank our 5 wonderful panelists. You spoke from the heart, and you spoke so well.
Thank you so much, Senator. We are very appreciative because we know that we're going to do this together. That's the way we make drastic, significant change.
Indeed. Thank you.
And so, Kim, I want to bring you into the conversation as we wrap up. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. We promised people 35 minutes and it's gone a little over, but you know, Latinas, people color time. Anyway, I'm not going to get it. Anyway, you know what I mean. So Kim, you were snapping a lot when Juliana was talking. Talk to me, what was resonating with what she was saying with you so deeply?
Everything, because it's like an expectation. One, I'm also so excited hearing you and hearing the passion. And like, you're a freshman. Like, that brings me so much hope and so much like joy and strength, because if I had your strength, your knowledge when I was a freshman, your wisdom, your action, like it would have been, I was scared. I was in like a new environment. I didn't know anything. I was best friends with my college advisor in high school. I would go bug her every day because I remember my mom told me, if you want to go to college, you have to figure it out, take out a scholarship. And thankfully, I got a full ride to Cornell University, and I didn't graduate with that much debt. But grad school, that's when it hits. And so many of us get out of college with that hope of like, I'm going to get my dream job. And then like, you have to have a master's degree or else you're going to get minimum wage or less, or unless you have a connection or it's daddy's business. And you know, the only jobs in my neighborhood growing up were minimum wage jobs or like social work jobs that were paying like way, way less than anything that I could afford or have it be sustainable. So grad school is what really built my debt. And like, I didn't know how high the interest rates were going to be or how much that would impact me, because it's not only impacting me, it's impacting my family. So many Latinas are responsible not only for caring like for the next generation, but for the generation before us. Like the hope of so many of our families is on our shoulders of you're going to take care of your parents when they retire because they don't have a retirement plan, because they don't have, you know, XYZ and in store for you are their retirement plan. We are not only for the previous generation, but for the generation coming after us if we choose to have children or raise families. So a lot of this debt is a manifestation of intergenerational and systemic oppression, because the chances of us building that wealth or breaking those cycles of poverty are reduced if you have like $200,000 in debt, trying to invest in yourself, trying to get an education, trying to build that wealth. Nobody told me, like, painted that picture of like, okay, go to college, yay, get your master's, yay, Ivy League, here's your debt. And as a small business owner, it's like, okay, great. Now I have to pay for health insurance too, out of pocket.
So Kim, something that you used to say is that, you know, one of the most underreported facts is that actually women and Latinas in particular are the fastest growers of small businesses. And so as we're wrapping up, as the attorney on deck, Nubia, I'm going to give you the last word. What do you think that a young woman or a young person right now listening to this conversation, what do they need to do? Because the point is not to deter people from seeking an education. So
right,
talk
absolutely.
to me about that. And I'll give it to you last word, and then we will go ahead and wrap.
First of all, follow Olivia because she has the plan. I think it's so important for us to figure out how we're defining success, because many of us went to the fancy private universities because we thought that was the best. But there is a real path where you can strategically save money with community college, with state school, thinking things thoroughly before you jump on board. And I think if there's a way for you to just strategically plan, it can be manageable. But I think most importantly, if you are concerned about going to school, if you're worried about the debt, about grad school, undergrad, Senator Schumer, people here on the panel have given you homework and things that you can do, because we can all fight together to make sure that there is some alleviation for the student debt for the folks who have it now, and that we reimagine education for the younger generation so that student debt is not this boogeyman. They can go into pursuing a higher ed degree so that they can fulfill their dreams. And I hope we're all aligned and fight together for that.
I'm there with you right now. So I want to give a big shout out. Thank you so much to Kim, Nubia, Marivette, Olivia Juliana, Gina, and Senator Chuck Schumer for spending your time with us today and for setting the table straight, making sure what needs to happen, and explain to individuals that education is absolutely accessible, but that we have to fight to ensure that we are playing on a level equal playing field. This is going to be a top priority for Voto Latino, as I shared with you before, because we know that when it comes to the lives of young Latinx voters, this is an issue that can't wait for action. It has to happen now. We'll continue to work with our allies in Washington and at the grassroots to push for transformative student debt relief. Finally, to everyone who joined us tonight, thanks for spending some time. And more importantly, thanks for being on top of this issue that we know is important to so many of us. We know that the answer to get involved in is to fight hard. You can sign up and be part of the fight and learn more about our work at votolatino.org. If you sign up, I would promise you that there will be a campaign soon so that we can help collect those 50 million signatures that Schumer said that we need to hand over to President Biden. And I know that we know many friends. We know that this is a hard fight, but those who are in the fight, that's how we make change. In the words of my dear friend Dolores Huerta, when it comes to student debt relief, sí se puede. I want to thank each of you tonight. I also want to thank the team behind the camera, our Vice President of Campaigns, Kenny Sandoval. Thank you so much. Jose, thank you so much. And everyone have a nice night. Be safe. And tomorrow we continue la lucha. Gracias.